On October 8th, International Harvester announced they were terminating their agreement with the Texas investor due to a failure of certifying financing, and as a result, it would cease production of the Scout line on October 21st. Workers had only a couple of weeks before their jobs would end.
It was just moving ahead, and boom, the end.
Several factors appear to have been involved in the decision, but perhaps the biggest was International Harvester's corporate financial problems.
Well, the company was out of money. The projects we had in spring of 1980 were ranked, and the most profitable ones were chosen. There was enough money to do the first two projects, and the Scout came in number 3.
I don't think the company wanted to save Scout. I don't think International Harvester really wanted. Now, there were elements within the Scout division that certainly wanted to save Scout, and I think they had a pretty good business plan to save Scout, and I think that business plan would have worked. But I think International Harvester made up their minds pretty early on that they wanted to end the Scout.
The decision culminated with the final Scout rolling off the factory floor on October 21st, 1980.
There was no cheering or hooting and hollering. Everybody was, their chin was down, and there was no tears, but it was an emotional day.
It was a very, very sad day. It just bring tears to your eyes. I mean, not just the pride, but the people losing their jobs.
I think the number was 464, if I recall correctly, that lost their jobs as a direct result of the Scout going away.
When I got 5 years in, I figured I had a job for life, but the economy and the way things went and the company.
When all was said and done, 532,674 Scouts had been produced in Fort Wayne from 1960 through 1980. The story came full circle in 2023 at a Harvester homecoming event in Fort Wayne, when the freshly restored first Scout produced was displayed side by side with the last Scout to roll off the assembly line. The Scout remains a highly collectible vehicle all over the world, even today, more than 40 years after the last one was made. Scout enthusiasts gather at a variety of events, like this one in Fort Wayne, to display their restored vehicles, swap stories, and celebrate the Scout.
And a lot of it is the people that own them. I put on a show and go to shows across the country and talk to the owners, and it's kind of a family.
A lot of people know me by that truck.
They might not be all fancy and smooth riding, but they're built rugged to take the punishment.
I love the vehicle.
I started collecting Scouts in the early 70s. The first one was a 61. It wasn't fast, but it was a lot of fun.
When the roads were bad, you get down the road with it in four-wheel drive.
You can get anywhere you want in bad weather, and that Scout has saved our lives a couple times.
In the winter, we'd pull the sled behind it.
In 1978, I ordered a brand new Scout, and my name was on the windshield when it went down the line.
I had 2 Scouts of my own. The first one in 72, I walked the line with it while it was built.
I've owned 3 Scouts.
How many do I have?
How many have you owned over the whole?
Oh my gosh. I thought I counted 27 or 8.
Another thing that makes the Scout so collectible is the relatively small number of units produced.
They're rare. You only built 550,000 of those. So for example, a 69 Camaro is something I used to be into. Well, they built 500,000 of those in 1 year.
It brings me back to a younger George Kirkham, a little bit of a young, impressionable salesman, and it's a history lesson. Driving them every day, every time I get in one, it's a history lesson. Yes, they're not as refined as your modern day Suburban or whatever that I drive, but that's the way things were back then.
Terminating the Scout line in 1980 barely moved the needle in terms of bringing Harvester back towards profitability. Even though its truck sales worldwide were a hefty $3.3 billion, the truck division barely managed to break even with expenses. International's flagship agricultural equipment group reported a $30 million loss, and the struggling construction equipment business posted a $23 million loss.
We continued to make more and more sales, and we continued to make less and less profit. Our sales were good and our profits were terrible.
In December of 1981, Archie McCardle and the board were able to work out a deal with the company's nearly 200 creditors to restructure its crushing $4.2 billion of debt. This refinancing deal was seen as a temporary reprieve to keep the industrial giant from filing for bankruptcy. Back at the Fort Wayne Works, only 5,000 employees remained on the job, compared to the 10,500 workers employed before the strike. The city of Fort Wayne was suffering, with a jobless rate of 11%. 1982 would also be Archie McCardle's second contract negotiations with the UAW. His argument for $100 million in concessions from the union seemed stronger than ever against the grim economic backdrop. At this point, it was looking like the future of the entire company was in doubt. Perhaps it was this realization that their very livelihoods were at stake that brought the UAW back to the bargaining table. The average union employee made $12.35 an hour, compared to a minimum wage of $3.35 at that time. A deepening recession was keeping unemployment levels in double digits. It was no time to be on strike, or much worse, looking for work.
Times were tough. You couldn't get a job at Ford Motor Company, Chrysler, or GM. Everybody was laid off.
McCardle and Harvester had the upper hand this time. On May 2, 1982, UAW members ratified a new 29-month contract that included an astounding $200 million in contract concessions. The next day, it was announced that Archie McCardle and International Harvester were parting ways. Louis Mink replaced him as chairman of the board, and Don Lennox became the new president and chief operating officer. Back in March, Harvester had sent telegrams to the government leaderships in both Fort Wayne and Springfield, asking the cities to put together aid packages to help keep the manufacturing facilities in their towns open.
I'm Carl Bandmer. I was the Economic Development Director under Mayor Wynn Moses. When Harvester announced that it was liable to leave, that really elevated the concern.
The mayor's office held meetings with the local Harvester executives to assess what they could do to retain Fort Wayne's largest employer.
Clearly, Harvester's main needs are cold cash, that there's very little in the way of deferred obligations or guaranteed loans that are going to be of significant benefit to them.
City, county, and state officials went to Chicago this morning to talk with officials of International Harvester about a financial assistance proposal to keep this plant afloat.
When the government delegation returned from their meeting with the Harvester executives, a press conference was held outside of the factory to reveal details of the $20 million incentive package. It contained a $9.2 million loan guarantee program made up of a mixture of state, city, and county funds. An additional $10 million in cash would be provided to Harvester through a sale and leaseback of their parts distribution center.
In return for this effort, Harvester would agree to remain in Fort Wayne so long as the lease exists.
That potential 10-year lease and other pending offers from the community had local leaders feeling optimistic. All seemed to be going well until International Harvester made a bombshell announcement on July 29, 1982. The company would be consolidating its truck manufacturing facilities from 3 factories in North America to just 2. The 3 factories involved were Chatham, Ontario, Springfield, Ohio, and Fort Wayne, Indiana. It soon became apparent that the Canadian facility would remain open. This meant either Springfield or Fort Wayne would have to close. Fort Wayne was now in a fight to keep their crown as heavy-duty truck capital of the world.